Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at digital Turbine. This was a stock analysis request from one of the followers, and I wanted to let you know that anyone can make these requests and I will most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. And here in the case of this chart, we don't necessarily have a very bullish setup. We do have from pretty much the beginning a three-wave structure that took us to new all-time lows. And then we did get a structure that took us to new all-time highs, but again, it was in three waves. And then we could consider this an initial wave 1 and here a correction in a wave 2. We could look for an area of support, which in this case would go all the way down to the $1.7 level. We did break it a couple of times, unfortunately, and it wasn't even a very brief break. Yeah, we did manage to recover, but it was weeks at a time before we did that. And there is, unfortunately, the reality that I can easily count this structure to the downside as a 5-wave move. And that suggests that the probabilities are rather higher that we continue in this downtrend, whether this 5-wave structure to the downside is a wave A or a wave 1, doesn't really matter at this point. The idea is that after a correction here in a follow-up, either a wave B or a wave 2, we can expect with quite a high likelihood compared to the bullish scenario that we should see further continuation to the downside in a follow-up 5-wave structure. And in this case, I would be watching out for resistance in the area between the $6.6 level all the way up to the $39.6 level. And so far, we seem to have pushed a few times already into the first level of resistance, and we got rejected pretty much each of those times. Yeah, it lessened with each attempt. The gravity of the rejection lessened with each attempt, but yeah, so far there is still quite a good chance that we may not even form an additional high in this area, although it is preferred in my opinion. So even though I am preferring the orange interpretation at the moment, and I will continue to do that as long as we stay below this area of resistance that we have here in orange, I would still prefer further extensions higher within this wave 2. Now, of course, in the end, it could work out in a way that we may form this larger wave 3 to the upside in the white scenario, but at the moment, as I just said, the probabilities, as long as we stay below the $39.6 level, suggest that we should expect further continuation to the downside. Now, of course, in this area, we did also have some structural resistance, and we still do have some structural resistance ahead, which isn't necessarily too surprising that we got rejected at the 38.2% retracement. But I have to say, this is only the first level of resistance, and already it rejected us 3 times. So I would be extremely cautious, especially after forming such an ABC structure to the upside, that yeah, this entire structure may fail. And already I could consider a full ABC pattern in this area. Yeah, I don't really need to see an extended wave C to the upside to be able to consider this wave 2 complete, because technically we did fulfill all the minimum expectations. But now I would still like to try to track such a development where yeah, we would still see a larger structure internally, and in that case we should be at the moment in an internal wave 3. And if this is to work out, well, firstly, there is no confirmation yet that we have bottomed within the wave 2, but there is a good sign, because this structure does seem to be attempting to create some sort of an impulse in this area in a 5-wave structure. But as a backup, we can still track an area of support for this initial 1-2 setup, and it would be between the $4.7 level all the way down to the $2.8 level. Now, if we are to track internally this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would be focusing mostly on this area of support here for a wave 4 correction. But I do warn you, if we break below this level, the 50% retracement, it would be a pretty great warning sign that we are at least looking for a reset here within the wave 2. And yeah, sure, we may find the reset and still push higher within the wave 3, but ideally we get our initial 5-wave structure to the upside where afterwards I would be able, with higher probabilities, to continue to track an uptrend within this internal wave 3. Now, could we really even consider this movement to the upside already a 5-wave structure? Well, yes, but honestly, it doesn't look too good. I would prefer another high to have a more clear 5-wave pattern. But for now, if we actually break below the $5.6 level, I would prefer a complete reset of this wave 2. So on this chart, we are still looking for continuation higher. We are still exploring these ideas, especially as long as we hold these smaller areas of support. But keep in mind, from a large time frame perspective, there is still a high risk that we may turn into a 1, 2, 3, in which case, if this really ends up following through to the downside in a wave 3, and it could even start here. So this is an initial warning, because I could have an ABC pattern complete. If we really start in a third wave to the downside, we could easily push with quite strong momentum and have very little time to actually get out of a risky position that we may have already entered within this chart. So I would pay very close attention if I am on the long side to these areas of support. Firstly, the $5.6 level, and then the $2.8 level are critical in my opinion. Of course, I'm not saying it is impossible to do something like a larger ABC, even if we fall below the 78.6% retracement, but there is, again, great risk. So it is your choice, after all, how you use this information. How this is, after all, my opinion of what we should be watching and what we should be careful of. There is indeed a lot of potential still on this chart, but there is also a lot of risk. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.